So I'm watching a game yesterday. What used to be considered a great tackle, a violent, violent. If that was done by Dick Butkus, it'd say he's the greatest player. If that were done by Lawrence Taylor, it was done by Lawrence Taylor and Dick Butkus. And Ray Nitschke, right? Ray Nitschke. Used to see these tackles, and it was incredible to watch, right? Now they tackle. Oh, head-on-head collision, 15 yards. The whole game is all screwed up. You say, wow, what a tackle. Bing, flag. Football's become soft. Football has become soft. Now, I'll be criticized for that. They'll say, oh, isn't that terrible? But football's become soft like our country has become soft. It's true.
When it comes to the NFL and specifically the rules of the game, everyone has an opinion.
The outcome of games have been changed by what used to be phenomenal stuff. Now, these are rough guys. These guys want, what they're doing is incredible. But I looked at it, and I watched yesterday in particular. So many, right? So many flags. And I can imagine a guy like Lawrence Taylor and Dick Butkus, who was really rough, and some of these guys sitting there watching, wow, what a beautiful tackle. 15 yards, that's the game is over. You can't kick a field goal anymore.
Where even the former president gives his take. And when a MAGA attendee passed out, Donald Trump said this.
That woman was out cold, and now she's coming. See? We don't go by these new and very much softer NFL rules. Concussion. Got a little ding in the head. No, you can't play for the rest of the season. Our people are tough.
There's no doubt the NFL should face its fair share of scrutiny. However,
how much do you estimate you lost?
I think it's a little bit over 60. It's between 60 and 65,000.
Did you have it to lose?
No. It's mostly credit card debt that I had to take on.
Now that you've stopped playing daily fantasy sports, are there triggers that you worry about?
Anytime I see one of those commercials from FanDuel or DraftKings, I think about it.
After I played FanDuel the first time, I was hooked. I start pacing back and forth.
It's like the best adrenaline rush ever.
As we see gambling take over sports, it seemed it was only a matter of time before its effects were felt. With the public, the impact of sports gambling has been quite profound.
Fortune awaits!
Sports betting, with ads practically running on a loop on TV, is now legal in 30 states, and upwards of 90% of it is happening online and on phones with apps from companies like DraftKings.
As soon as we opened up and launched that mobile app, we saw the traffic spikes.
The floodgates opened in 2018 when the Supreme Court struck down a federal sports gambling ban. Now, gamblers in a state like Pennsylvania spend hundreds of millions of dollars each month, and the state gets 36% of winnings as tax revenue. This young man, we're calling him T, is in recovery and did not want to be identified for professional reasons.
I had bet over $400,000 in the past 6 years. With my phone, I could play 24/7. I could bet on Swedish basketball. I was betting at 3 in the morning on Russian ping pong.
With the leagues, Dean Blandino, the NFL's former head of officiating, let us know how far this goes.
Have you ever heard of an NFL official being approached by somebody about trying to impact a score or a stat line or anything like that in the game?
We've had situations and they, where people were approached, and we always told our game officials, don't, because they're in hotels, they're traveling around during the season. We didn't want them wearing NFL branded gear, right? We wanted them to be inconspicuous, because someone sees them and, oh, those are the NFL officials. And then you never know. You just don't know who you're going to come across. So, and they know that they're supposed to go to NFL security if something like that happens. And that has happened in the past.
This is eye-opening, with Blandino practically giving credence to officials being approached to potentially manipulate games. This is huge. However, he does note they take extra precautions in who they hire and suit up to be referees.
The NFL has so many controls in place just to become an NFL official. The NFL security, the background checks, they go around before we hired an NFL official, and this is still the case today. You'd have NFL security reps going door to door in the neighborhood and talking to the neighbors. Yeah, they look at all of your business associations. They look for conflicts of interest. all of that, bank accounts, everything. And there's checks during the season. And so they'll look at if a game official has, $10 in their bank account on Friday, and then they work a game and now there's $100,000. That's a red flag, right? So you're checking those things, you're monitoring the betting lines, and so looking at how calls impact those lines, and are there individual officials that are involved in more of those calls? And it's a massive, massive undertaking, because what the league doesn't want, and what we never wanted, was a situation like what happened with the NBA, right?
As Contez's co-worker Sam Newman would write in his piece, while the NFL's extensive protocols are robust, Blandino's frank admission of past approaches and the ever-evolving nature of gambling makes it clear the league's battle against officiating corruption remains constant, demanding continued vigilance and adaptation.
Does the league ever attempt to impact a score? And what I mean by that is, like, are there times where the league is like, you know what, last week there were too many flags thrown. This week we have the Cowboys and the Bills playing against each other. Let's try not to throw a subjective flag that's going to necessarily potentially take points off the board.
Well, I think it's an ongoing process. The league never, Roger Goodell never came down to me and said, hey, we're throwing too many flags, right? You're always working with the officials. You have to make the calls that need to be called, not the ones you could, not being technical. You want to stay away from those, and you have to make the calls that are there.
Let me put a bow on this by saying, this is unfortunately going to lead to the conspiracy theorists just having a absolute field day. It was a necessary question. It was the right question to be asked. And I'm glad that Blandino answered it the way that he did. But as we have seen how much a dollar is worth to so many people, including the billionaire ruling class of sports, the commissioners who make more than the players, and seeing the product on the field, these are questions that should continually be raised over and over again. Blandino said that when they go to certain places, let's say Vegas for a game for the Raiders, they have to report where they are going. They have to avoid the sports book. They should avoid wearing official NFL gear so they are not targeted. Though one could honestly make the case that we know a lot of these referees because we watch the games. We are familiar with their faces. We are familiar with their deliveries on the mic. We're familiar with their mannerisms. All it would take is a small bit of research to identify the referees. So I understand where he's coming from. Don't necessarily buy it. The most important point is this. With daily fantasy, okay, and overall sports gambling, this is not anything new, but creating and regenerating potential controversies. And I really hope the leagues combat this to the best of their abilities, because the one thing that you cannot question year after year is integrity. That's it.